हरे कृष्णा अर्चना माता जी, वंदना प्रणाम।
हरे कृष्ण माता जी।
माता जी, would you like to do a kirtan? Are you in the office, माता जी?
Hare Krishna, I'm in the office only, माता जी.
Okay.
People have not come. I can do the kirtan.
You can do, माता जी?
I'll do it.
Okay. हरे कृष्णा, go ahead, माता जी. Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Rajeshwari माता जी. हरे कृष्णा, दंडवत प्रणाम माता जी. Can leave, माता जी, if you want. हरे कृष्णा.
हरे कृष्ण माता जी. Thank you, माता जी.
जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंदा श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंदा हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे जय राधा माधवा कुंज बिहारी जय गोपी जन वल्लभा जय गोपी जन वल्लभा जय राधा माधवा कुंज बिहारी जय राधा माधवा कुंज बिहारी जय गोपी जन वल्लभा गिरिवरधारी जय गोपी जन वल्लभा गिरिवरधारी यशोधानन्दन व्रज जनरञ्जन यशोदानन्दन व्रज जनरञ्जन यमुनातीरवनचारि हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण हरनाम संगीत के जय सर्वत्र हरे कृष्ण
हरे कृष्णा माता जी. Thank you so much, माता जी. हरे कृष्णा प्रभु जी, दंडवत प्रणाम प्रभु जी. Welcome प्रभु जी. हरे कृष्णा प्रभु जी. Over to you, प्रभु जी.
Hare Krishna. So then which pronounced to all of you. You're able to hear me? Is the voice audible? Is it okay?
Yes, प्रभु जी. हरे कृष्णा.
Hare Krishna. Thank you. So thank you, Mataji. Thank you for the nice kirtan. So welcoming each one of you for today's Srimad Bhagavatam. So Monday morning, Ekadashi. And we are already seeing the hands going up. So that's so wonderful. So we will be doing 3 shlokas today. The 4th canto, 12th chapter, the shlokas 5, 6, and 7. So those are the 3 shlokas or verses that we will do. So before we get started, Om Ajnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamin Niti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashyayata Deshatarine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Okay, Hare Krishna once again. So we can get started with the verses. So generally what we do is each of us get a chance to read the verse and the translation. So just try to share, just give me a minute. Hope you all are able to see the screen. So,
Yes,
yeah, thank you. So 4, 12, 5, 6, and 7, 3. So the first one I'll read, then you can continue to read the first one again. Tadgaccha dhruva badhram te bhagavantam adokshacham sarva bhutatma bhavena sarva bhutatma vigraham. So, yeah, Vasudha Mataji, would you like to read the verse? And then you can also read the translation after that.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam
Very good.
Prabhuji.
Tanvaj to you.
Tadgacchadruva bhadram te bhagavantam adokshajam sarvabhutatma bhavena sarvabhutatma vigraham. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much.
Thank you. You can read the translation too.
Okay, Prabhu. Thank you, Prabhu. Translation, Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. My dear Dhruva, come forward. May the Lord always grace you with good fortune. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is beyond our sensory perception, is the super soul of all living entities, and thus all entities are one without distinction. Therefore, begin rendering service unto the transcendental form of the Lord, who is the ultimate shelter of all living entities. Hare Krishna Prabhuji. Thank you.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much, Mataji. So like always, we will not read the purport, but I'll try to cover it. So the 6th verse, Barnali Sen Mataji, you can read.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranams.
Dandavat Pranams to you.
Bhajas Svabhajain Yang Krim Abhaya Bhavachidam Yuktam Biha Virahitam Saktya Gunamayatma Mayaya. Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Thank you so
Should I
much.
read the translation also?
Yeah, you can.
Translation by Srila Prabhupada. Engage yourself fully, therefore, in the devotional service of the Lord, for only He can deliver us from this entanglement of materialistic existence. Although the Lord is attached to His material potency, He is aloof from her activities. Everything in this material world is happening by the inconceivable potency of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Hare Krishna Prabhuji. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you so much, Mataji. Now we'll go to the final one. I'm not sure who raised the hand first, but I see 2. devotees, Anita Mataji and Archana Mataji. Maybe one of you can do the verse, the other one can do the translation.
Hare Krishna, Namaste. Vranihi kamam hridayam manogatam mattasvanautanapade vishangita varam varahom bhujanabhapadayo anandharam tvam vayamanga sushruma. Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much, Mataji. So, Anita Mataji, you can read the translation.
Prabhupada. My dear Dhruva Maharaj, as son of Maharaj Uttanapad, we have heard that you are constantly engaged in transcendental loving service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is known for his lotus navel. You are therefore worthy to take all benedictions from us. Please therefore ask without hesitation whatever benediction you want from me.
Hari Hari. Thank you all so much. So these are three verses that we will look for today. Try to understand what Srila Prabhupada is trying to communicate. What is the aspect that he's bringing out? We'll try to touch on that. So thank you so much for joining. And now, before we get started, the pranam mantras for the gurus. Vancha kalpatarubhyascha. Sorry. Natimirandasya Nyananjana Shalakaya Chakshuranmilatam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Nitinamine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharane Nirvishesha Shunyavadi पाश्चात्य देश तारिणे जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद द्वैत गदाधर शिवासादि गौरवोत्तरवृंदा हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे. I think this kindly bear with my voice. I've got a little bit of a cold, so that's one aspect. And I think we did not say Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Try to cover that because it's always good to pay obeisances to the Srimad Bhagavatam, who's none other than the Lord Himself. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narotamam Devim Saraswatam Vyasam Tato Jaya Mudirayet Nashta Prayeshu Avadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Utashloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtaki Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangum Langayate Girim Yat Kripatam Aham Vande Shri Guru Dinatarinam Paramananda Madhavam Shri Chaitanya Ishwaram. Hare Krishna. So the fourth canto, that is the creation of the fourth order, in that we are in chapter 12. We've just started the chapter. So the chapter is titled Dhruva Maharaj Goes Back to Godhead. So the background to the discussion, I think you all are aware. So just for continuity, I'll just try to touch upon a few points here. So here we have a situation where actually Dhruva Maharaj is on a war path. In fact, if we recall, Dhruva Maharaj's brother was killed by an yaksha, and there was vengeance in the air for Dhruva Maharaj because he becomes very upset, very angry with the yaksha, and then he wages a war on the yakshas, and he actually kills many times the yakshas, by using his Narayanastra, if you recall. In fact, the Astra has the potency to kill so many people in one go, and he uses that, and then he is killing the yakshas. So that is not a very good situation because one person was killed by the yaksha, that is his brother, and now he is killing so many of them. So he's trying to take revenge many times over, which is not correct also. So there is intervention that happens. Swayambhuva Manu, who is none other than the grandfather of Dhruva Maharaj, he intervenes and then he stops, or he requests him not to continue this war. He reasons out with him and tells him this is not correct. You cannot kill so many and then continue the war in this fashion. It is not becoming. You're not bringing glory to the family. That kind of a conversation, and so he immediately stops. So that's the background. And now the war has stopped, and this actually pleases another personality. So who's that personality? That is Dhanada. So Dhanada Vacha. So that's how this particular chapter starts. So who's Dhanada? Dhanada is none other than Kuvera. Dhanada means the treasurer. The treasurer. That's the one who is in charge of the financial aspect. So we know his name is Kuvera. So this personality then becomes very happy to see that the war has stopped, and then he comes to meet him. So that's where the conversation is starting. Then you see here in this particular shloka, it says, what does it say? It says, my dear Dhruva, come forward. May the Lord always grace you with good fortune. So who's speaking this? Kuvera is talking to Dhruva because he has decided to stop the war. And then, of course, we'll try to see what he is saying. But now, we might think, why is Kuvera coming to see Dhruva Maharaj? See, we should know that everyone is aware of Dhruva Maharaj by now. When I say everyone, we are talking about the entire universe. So the Brahmanda, everybody is aware of Dhruva. Why? Because of the wonderful things that he had done. So the boy Dhruva, we know what he had done. So the amount of tapas that he had done and how he pleased the Lord. So we can say in one sense that he was a boy wonder, so he achieved something that many sages and many saintly people, many transcendentalists who could not achieve in their entire lifetime, or even lifetime after lifetimes they could not achieve, which is having darshan of the Lord. He was able to achieve it within 6 months. So that's a very wonderful feat that a person has done. And he did it when he was a small boy. He didn't do it at a later age when you are a man and then you're much more stronger in will and all of that. So no, it didn't happen that way. So he was a small boy, 5-7-year-old boy, and then he actually performed such wonderful austerities, which we are aware of. So he is actually known throughout the universe as a devotee of the Lord, because the Lord gave him darshan and there was benediction that happened, and then he continued, and then he was ruling the Bhumandala and then Bhuloka, and then after that, then this incident happened, and where he goes about waging a war on the Yakshas, and now he has stopped it. So in this chapter, Kuvera is actually he begins to glorify the devotee of the Lord, that is Dhruva. So Dhruva Maharaj is being glorified. And then he praises him for listening to his elders, that is the grandfather, that is Swayambhuva Manu. So he listened to him and then he gives up the fight. And so he is praised for that. And then he says, Dhruva, you are actually a sinless person. And then now sometimes we might wonder, Achha, he has done so much of killing, then how come he is a sinless person? Maybe it's because he is a devotee. No, but Dhanada, that is Kuvera, he is trying to justify his statement by saying that, what does he say? He says that you did not actually kill all the Yakshas, because the Yakshas were not killed at all. Nor was your brother killed by the Yaksha. So it is all the hand of the Lord. And then the how over time things have happened. So, and then he also tries to bring up the aspect of how each one of us are not the body, and then how each one of us are the soul. And then here you can see how the aspect that we are all, everybody is one or everybody is equal is being brought out here by Kuvera. And then he's actually saying that we are all one. And so what is that aspect that he's bringing out here? So the aspect that comes out is the aspect of oneness or abheda. So now why is that abheda so important? Because Dhruva Maharaj actually saw Beda. So he was looking, I mean, he gets agitated because his brother was killed. So he is making the distinction between people. And then he understands that this is mine, he is my brother, and then they killed. So me, us, them, they, that kind of a thing. So he is making this kind of a differentiation. And then he went about seeking revenge, and that too he was emotionally involved. So he went about killing so many people, so many yakshas, which is not a very correct situation. So he's trying to say that we are all anyway one, we are all equal in front of the Lord. So in the eyes of the Lord, we are all the same. So the Abheda aspect he's trying to highlight, and then trying to say that whatever you have done, it's out of, I mean, it's not like you have done it, that kind of a thing. And then Kuvera is also trying to tell Dhruva Maharaj that you are a devotee of the Lord. You are already blessed by the Lord. And so he is saying, let the Lord always shower his mercy so that your good fortune increases always. So he's benedicting him even more. And then he is also saying, therefore begin rendering service unto the transcendental form of the Lord, who is the ultimate shelter for all of us. So we don't have to take shelter of the war to seek a revenge or any of that, because ultimately the final shelter for all of us is the Lord. So let's leave it to the Lord, and then let us continue to serve the Lord as his devotees, as his servants. So that is what Kuvera is putting across to Dhruva. So he says, may the Lord always grace you with good fortune. Then he says, the supreme personality of Godhead is beyond our sense perception. And he is also the super soul who is living in all the entities. And thus all the entities are one without distinction. So now, even in this aspect of trying to do the Abheda, that is trying to say that everybody is one without distinction, still he is bringing out the aspect of Veda, which with respect to the Lord. So whenever we are talking about any Abheda statements, then we will always have to follow it up with Veda, especially with respect to the Lord. So here he is saying that the Supreme Lord is beyond our sense perception. So he's trying to clearly separate out ourselves with respect to the Lord. Says that the Lord as an entity is different. He is beyond our sense perception. He is the super soul in all of us. And because he is present, the oneness is there in us. And then he says, by rendering service to the transcendental form of the Lord, then we will be able to make advancement or progress. So now, rendering service to the transcendental form of the Lord, there are two things. It's a very powerful statement. So what is it? One is transcendental form of the Lord is being highlighted. So we know that the Lord has a form. So we cannot conclude that the Lord is formless. Of course, he has an attribute which is formless, which is the Brahman feature. That's a feature which is included in the personality of the Lord. So it is part of the Lord, it is included in that. But then the whole complete understanding is that the Paramatma realization, that is the complete understanding of the transcendental Lord. So there's this verse in this Srimad Bhagavatam, Vadanti Tattva Vidas, Tattvam Jnanam Advayam, Brahmeti Paramatmeti Bhagavan iti Shabdyate. So we'll have to understand the Lord in these three attributes, or in the three manifestations of the Lord. One is the manifestation of Brahman, which is the impersonal feature of the Lord. Then there is this manifestation of Paramatma, who is the localized Brahman, who's present in every living entity, and thereby this oneness is being sometimes, the oneness aspect comes up, and then it is being highlighted. And then the Bhagavan feature, which is a personal form of the Lord. So here, Prabhupada very rightly in his purport is bringing out the aspect of Vigraham, or having specific form. So this verse talks about that, right? Sarva Bhutatma Vigraham. Sarva Bhutatma Bhavena and Sarva Bhutatma Vigraham. So where we will have to just render service to the personal form of the Lord, and that is what is being told here. Then Prabhupada immediately then goes on to say how even though there is oneness, there is always a difference. And then it is explained in the Brahma Samhita, the Sach, Chit, and then the Ananda form of the Lord. That is Satchit Ananda Vigraha. So we know he has a form, but then his form is different from all kinds of material forms. So because somebody might think he has a form, I have a form. So he has 2 legs, I have 2 legs. So I and he are equal, or I can become the Lord. So it's not like that. And then it also is wrong for us to conclude that when the Lord's form is same like our form. It is not, because our form is material, whereas the Lord's form is transcendental. So this Abheda or the variegatedness, the non-oneness has to be always understood. They both will flow together. Whenever there is talk of Veda, we should also remember there is a Veda. So, and that is what Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has taught all of us. So he brought out this aspect of sorry, Veda and Abheda, where he said it is Achintya Veda Abheda Tattva. So the truth, how we perceive it as Vaishnavas, is the truth of Veda and Abheda, which is simultaneously one yet different. So that aspect has to remain all through, even though sometimes in conversations the oneness might get highlighted, but that's a different aspect. Okay, so here Prabhupada then immediately is talking about the form of the Lord, and then it is also said here that Dhruva Maharaj has to render service to the form of the Lord. Now, rendering service means then there are 3 things that are there to the Supreme Lord. Means the person who's rendering service, so that is one entity. Then the person who's receiving the service, that is the Supreme Lord. So there are 2 entities. So one is the soul and the other one is the Bhagavan. And then the service itself, that's the 3rd entity. So sorry, the service itself is a 3rd entity, where we know there are ways in which we can render service to the Lord. So of course we have the Navavida Bhakti, which is about Shravanam Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam, Pada Sevanam, Archanam, Vandanam, Dasyam, Sakyam, Atma Nivedanam. So in this way, when we understand our position and the Lord's position, and that is the aspect that is coming out in this conversation between Kuvera and Dhruva Maharaj. So here again, Prabhupada is going on to mention how when we serve the Lord, then all the other individual forms are also served. So he's talking about the prayojana. So now the activity is established, identity is established, activity is established. What is the identity? Identity of the Lord, how he is different from the living entities. So the living entities are there, then the Supreme Personality is there. And then the relationship is also established, which is the relationship of servitude. And then how we will have to render service is also explained. Now, then the next thing is, so this is Sambandha and Abhidheya. So we have to do service. So that is Abhidheya. And then Prayojana is the benefit that you get. What is that benefit? It says such a service includes or it will include service to all other individual forms. You don't have to really go and then render service to all the other forms that are existing who are superior, but just serve the Lord, then everybody else gets satisfied. Because as human beings, the dharma of a human being is to Devata Run, the run of the demigods. So we will have to be indebted to them. So we should acknowledge the run. So we will have to serve them. But then serving how many? There are 33 crore demigods. So how do we go about serving all of them, or returning back the rin? So it's not possible. So the only best way is to serve the Lord. And then when we serve the Lord, then automatically all of them will get uh, included in that particular service. And for that, the example, the famous example of watering the root of a tree or a plant is given. So Prabhupada very nicely explains how when you pour water to the tree, root of the tree, then each and every leaf gets its share of water. So when we serve the Lord, then each and every demigods or people who are helping us, they who have sprung from the Supreme Lord. That's like the Lord is the root, and then they are all the leaves, you can say. So how they all get their share of water, so that everybody becomes satisfied, and there is harmony in the whole, or harmony or balance in the whole arrangement. Otherwise, it'll upset the whole thing. There is this incident of Daksha Prajapati, who did not want to give an offering to Lord Shiva, and thereby he went through, he was actually killed. So you know what all he had to go through. And then finally he accepts his mistake, he realizes it, he accepts it, and then makes the Igna once again. And thereby then everybody is satisfied, and there is harmony or balance that is restored later on. Otherwise, if you see that pastime of Daksha Prajapati, things go really berserk, and then the whole Yagnashala is vanquished, or it is like what do you call, completely destroyed, that kind of a situation. So anyway, so with these examples we can understand how one has to actually serve the Lord, and that is more than sufficient, because the other forms, that is the demigods, all the other in-between people will automatically, individual forms are automatically served by serving the Lord. So Prabhupada again then rejects the Mayavada conception, and then he says that the aspect that the Lord is formless must be rejected here, because the Lord has a form, and that form is served, and he is all pervading, and nothing is independent of him. So clearly re-establishing the position of the Lord once again and again in every verse. And that is what we see. See, if you look at any verse, there are only three things that happen. One is either they are talking about the Sambandha, or they are talking about the Abhidaya, or they are talking about the Prayojana. So if we get these three right, what is Sambandha, what is Abhidaya, what is Prayojana, then we will be able to grasp the entirety of what is the message that is coming across, be it in the purports of Srila Prabhupada or in the story itself. In this case, the story of Dhruva Maharaj, especially the aspect pertaining to the conversation with Kubera. So if you look at the next verse, the whole aspect continues, or all like the glorification of the Lord is continuing. Because see, what is it that we have as part and parcels of the Lord? We have certain oneness with respect to the Lord, but there is also a difference. So this difference is what we will have to recognize and accept, and then play the role with the difference in mind. Not look at the oneness and then say that we are equal. No, it's not like that. So it's a very wrong concept, and that is how the Mayavadis and the Vaishnavas are different. So in the next verse also it is said that Kubera is telling Dhruva Maharaj that you engage yourself fully in devotional service of the Lord, for only he can deliver us from this entanglement of materialistic existence. Who's talking about entanglement of materialistic existence? Kubera. So he is saying he can deliver us. So he is including himself. Even though he is a demigod, he is such a powerful personality with respect to the position and what he controls. But still he says, we all, that is us, we can be delivered only, we are, by the Lord only can deliver us from this entanglement of material existence, which means that he is accepting that he is also entangled in a materialistic existence. So, and then he goes on to describe the tattva a little more in detail. He says the Lord is attached to his material potency, yet he is aloof from her activities. So because the aspect of Maya has to be highlighted here, because it is by the control of Maya that this war happened, and all the fallout that they are seeing is because of this. So he says, the Lord, although he is attached to the material potency, because the material potency of the Maya is coming from the Lord only, but still he is aloof from her activities. So we should not say that the Lord has done it, so he is aloof from her activities. So everything in this material world is happening by the inconceivable potency of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So the Godhead has got various potencies or various Shaktis. Vividaiva Shruyate. What's that? It says, Parasya Shaktir Vividhaiva Shruyate. So there are various potencies of the Lord which are there, and each of them play their role. So in the same way, Maya Shakti is also considered as a potency of the Lord, and she is independent in her operations, but then she is under the control of the Supreme Lord. So even though the Lord is attached to the material potency in this way, he is still aloof from her activities. So that's another aspect of the Lord, which will help us to understand how the Lord is. And then he says that everything in this material world is happening by the inconceivable potency of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So eventually everything is because of the potency of the Lord, which is not very hard for us to understand. And that's what is being told here. This is the discussion that they are having. And it's a very grave topic. Even though the personalities are so elevated, still they discuss the same aspects that we continue to discuss, and we also try to see and try to understand. So they are also talking about bhajasva or bhaja, that is engaging oneself in devotional service. So they also talk about that. And then they also then say that you have to serve the personality of Godhead. You can't serve the impersonal aspect of the Lord. So that is not possible. So Prabhupada also is explaining the same thing. And then he says, when the personality is served like that, then it pleases him. And then what happens? The Lord becomes attached, or the Lord is yuktam, or he becomes attached to the service that we render. And so the Lord gives himself to us. And then the Lord is also described as Bhava Chidam. What is Bhava Chidam? Bhava Chidam is one who cuts the knot of material entanglement. So the moment we associate with the Lord, we attach ourselves to the Lord, which is yuktam, by devotional service, then the Lord reciprocates, and then he cuts our knots which are there, which was binding us to the material world, which are binding us in terms of strong desires. What is this knot and the binding? That is by way of strong desires. We have very strong desire for certain things, and we are so attached to certain things. We may or may not have it, but the desires are very strong. I may not have a car to be attached to, for example, but my desire to own a car would be so strong, it is much more than the car itself. So this is the kind of attachment which is by way of desires which are there, which bind us to this material world. And this binding, those knots have to be cut. Unless they are cut, we will not be able to move up. It's like that balloon, they put a lot of hot air or whatever, and then they try to increase that fire so that the balloon can raise. But nothing is happening to that balloon because it is tied to the ground. That knot, that thread is holding it on the ground, and it's not able to go up. The moment that knot is cut, then it begins to raise. So there are two activities. One is cutting the knot so that the balloon moves up, freeing it up, and then giving it propulsion. That means like that increasing that fire there so that the air becomes hot and then lighter, and then it moves up. It takes the balloon up. So there has to be a push upward, and at the same time there has to be the disconnection to the connection at the ground level. So these two have to happen simultaneously. Otherwise, we will not be able to make progress. So we have to make our effort, which is actually the pravritti mark. So we have to make the effort, which is the positive aspect, which is doing services to the Lord. This is the seva, the Navavida Bhakti. And then, which includes chanting, all of that, whatever we are doing. And then we'll have to disengage or cut the knots of desire. And for cutting the knots of the desire, it is not possible to do it on our own. That's the fundamental philosophy that we have to understand. Some knots maybe we can cut on our own. Some desires are so feeble, we can overcome it with our own mind and determination and realization. I mean, we'll know, okay, I will not do that, and then it happens. Some of them are very strong, deep-rooted. You will start wondering, how am I going to cut this particular knot? It is not possible. Oh my God. And that is when the surrender has to happen. That is when then the supremacy of the Lord has to be accepted. And then turn to the Lord and then pray to the Lord so that He will cut it. And that is why He is called as Bhava Chidam. Bhava Chidam is one who cuts the knots of material entanglement. Unless this happens, and that is the mercy that happens by His mercy. So then we are like that balloon which will just begin to move upwards without any hindrance because all the knots are cut. So in this way, this kind of what do you call, understanding of the philosophy, understanding of the material world, understanding of the Lord, His position, and how everything is ultimately the Lord, even though everything is coming from Him, still there is a difference in the way we want to get attached to a particular energy. Here we are talking about the Maya Shakti. So Maya Shakti is not something that we would like to be attached to or controlled by, even though it is a potency of the Lord. So the whole aspect is that we should raise above that. And for that, then we will have to take the help of the Lord, because it is like, in one way, you're trying to compete with the Lord only. Potency of the Lord and Lord are the same, right? So if we know that Maya Shakti is the potency of the Lord, or the Lord Himself in one way, and we try to counter that. So it is like my potency with respect to the Lord. So do you think we're going to win? No way. So we'll have to realign ourselves in a way that the Lord Himself will help. So when the Lord helps, then Maya, which is the potency of the Lord, which is subservient to the Lord in one sense, it does not have any effect on us. We will be able to tide over. Like, for example, today is Ekadashi. So each of us have our own level of fasting that we want to do. So there is one that we can do or we've been doing, and there is one that we want to do. So maybe a little bit of progress here and there, and then sometimes our determination becomes very weak because the body's needs are we're so used to having food. But then once we depend on the Lord and then say, I leave it to you, it is up to you, then we'll suddenly feel that it is a little more easier for us to see the day through by depending on the Lord. And that is why our acharyas, our seniors, our gurus, everybody say, like, on an Ekadashi day, do more chanting, do more katha, so that divert the mind from the material aspects. Oh, I'm hungry, I've not had food, divert the mind from that and then engage the mind in the Lord. So take the shelter of the Lord or His remembrance or His words or His, not words, His name, so that then we will be able to tide over this material craving or other things that become very strong. Especially every 15 days we get tested on that. And then every time when we do that, when we practice, we become a little more little more confident, because we realize that we can depend on the Lord, and then the Lord will do something, and thereby then He will tide us over. It's not because I can do it. It will be like, it's the mercy of the Lord that it made me do that. And that's why you'll see some people always say, Lord's mercy today, yesterday I was able to do Ekadashi. If at all they are saying, they will speak like that, which is the right way to say, because we realize that it's not me who's the doer, especially when there is some kind of an achievement like this, and it is because of the mercy of the Lord. So this is a frame of mind that we are discussing here about how we should look at the activities that we do vis-a-vis the benefits that we get, and how the hand of Lord is there in everything. So here it says that the devotees of the Lord, they realize that the Lord is present even in the material energy. That is what they say. Prabhupada is writing. So the devotees of the Lord actually at first we know there is material energy, there is spiritual energy, we have to keep away from material energy, all of that is there. But then that kind of differentiation is done so that we are able to comprehend correctly and then take to the spiritual rather than continue to remain in material. So that is needed. So initially, to understand something, we differentiate. But later on, when there is complete realization or understanding, then there is nothing material. In fact, the Acharyas say there is nothing like material in the soul creation, because everything is coming from the God, so from Lord. So everything is spiritual. But it depends on how we look at it. We don't have that intelligence to understand that everything is spiritual. So we differentiate and we do the Veda, and then we try to say, okay, this is material and that is spiritual. So this is what Prabhupada is saying. For the devotees, the Lord is present even in the material energy. And this is the inconceivable potency of the Lord. And then he says that the material energy acts in 3 modes of material qualities, which we know, which produce the action and reaction of material existence. So even the way we react to situations, everything is like within us, we are saying we are depending on the Lord, or we are saying that it is all by the will of the Lord that this is happening. So ultimately, reaching to that point, accepting to the point that it is the Lord's will, and then subjecting ourselves or accepting a situation or accepting something which is not so favorable to us in a materialistic way, like financially or respect or anything. We might not be, we will not get what is due to us, but then just accepting it as the Lord's will and continuing our journey in devotional service is the way forward. And that is what is being highlighted here. Sorry. And then depend on the Lord to cut the knot. Bhava Chidam. So these wonderful things, though we know it is being churned out more and more by various personalities, and each time we hear this, then our conviction should become stronger so that we are able to surrender a little bit more to the Lord than we were before. And then, if you go to the next verse, what is being told? Kuvera is saying that we have heard that you are always transcendentally engaged in the loving service of the Supreme Lord. So you are a devotee of the Lord and you are always thinking of the Lord because you had darshan of the Lord when you were a 5-year-old boy. So, he didn't say that, but then this is what is meant. So you are always a devotee of the Lord, because once a devotee, once he had darshan, once he was benedicted by the Lord, then he was always in the remembrance of the Lord. Therefore, you are worthy of all benedictions from us. So now Kuvera's position we should understand. He is a demigod. And he is always benedicting the people below. So there is always this giving aspect that is there. So he says, you are worthy of taking all benedictions from us. So he knows that people come to us for benediction, but then you are worthy of taking benedictions from us. Therefore, he says, you ask whatever you want. So even though he goes to see him, then he goes to see him to give a benediction. And then the benedictions have to be asked. So he's saying, without hesitation, you ask whatever benediction you want from me, and I'll be able to give you. Now, interestingly, if you look at the purport, Prabhupada very nicely brings out another aspect. What he is saying is, Kuvera knew that Dhruva Maharaj will not ask anything else other than devotional service or bhakti. How does he know that? Because we also know that when he was a boy and when he had darshan of the Lord, how he realized that he had made a mistake trying to ask for some material gain. And he regrets. He compares it to pieces of glass, broken pieces of glass, what he thought was diamond before. So we know that that particular episode where the Lord gave darshan, and then the conversation that went through, and then how he was bewildered. He didn't know. The full realization happened because of the mercy of the Lord, because the Lord touched his forehead with a conch that he was holding in his hand. So the Lord, when he gave darshan, so then he made that. And then after that, he was able to gather his senses around, and then he was able to sing praises of the Lord. So even if we have to praise the Lord, we need his benediction or his mercy. It's only his strength which is allowing us to hear, allowing us to speak, allowing us to do some seva, allowing us to walk to the temple, do some service there, garland service, whatever be the service. There's nothing like small service, big service. Everything is a seva service, or reading about his glories, speaking about his glory to another, all of that. So We need this, his mercy. So now Kuvera knows that he is a devotee of the Lord, and then he is always remembering the Lord. So he knew that he will not ask for anything material, because a devotee will not want anything material, anything. He will not desire for anything in the three worlds. So he knew that. So he knew that Dhruva would ask for nothing but to remember the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord constantly. So if somebody is asking like that, and then if the demigod is benedicting that, then it becomes the demigod becomes glorious because of the devotee rather than the other way around, So because he is benedicting the right thing, so it makes the demigod more happy. Generally, when there is a benediction, the person who receives the benediction becomes happy. But in this case, it is the person who is benedicting becomes more happy because he is asking the right thing, and then it pleases the person who is benedicting so much that he becomes happy. Oh, he asked the right things, and then happily gives it. So this are some of the finer transcendental points. And then a devotee, the mood of the devotee is such that he doesn't want any benediction, is again brought out by Srila Prabhupada with a wonderful example where he quotes Srila Bilvamangala Thakura, and then he says that Bilvamangala Thakura had said that people who are engaged in devotional service of the Lord, for them all material benedictions are like maid servants. Mukutilanjali Seva. So he knows like Mukti is waiting at his doorstep, or the devotee's doorstep. Sir, please come. But then the devotee says, no, I am busy, and then he continues his seva. So like that. So we're trying to say that the service takes predominance over even liberation or mukti. So they don't want anything, including liberation. So that's the aspect that comes out. And for that, we've heard from Srila Bilvamangala Thakura, where he talks about this aspect so wonderfully. So a devotee never expects any other kind of material benediction, only the benediction of the remembrance of the Lord. In fact, Dhruva Maharaj's case also the same thing happens when he had his audience with the Lord. Prahlad Maharaj also, when the Lord is asking for benediction, Prahlad Maharaj says, or boy Prahlad, he says, I did not do all this so that I will take something from you. So that's how Prahlad Maharaj speaks to Narsingadev. So when Narsingadev says, ask for whatever you want. This is not some business transaction that I'm serving you. I just want to serve you. That's all. I don't want anything. Then he says, no, you still have to ask, because I've come, I have to give you something. Then he says, if at all you have to give me something, then you free my fathers. You kind of excuse all his bad things. Like you pardon him, and then you let him become purified. And this. That he says, anyway, that has already happened to him. Being your son, your father, means when a son like you was born, that time only he was liberated. So that's already done. So ask for something. And then he goes on to give. Then he says, okay, if at all you still insist, then you give me a benediction in a way that there is never a time when I will not have your forgetfulness. That means that I will always have your remembrance, and I will always have this intelligence to not ask for anything which is material, but always to seek you out at every time. So like that, a very transcendental benediction Prahlad Maharaj asks. But so from this we can understand there is no material seeking that devotees of the Lord do, especially when they realize the Lord. And realizing of the Lord and this intelligence and all of that is coming from the Lord. So they realize that I am a surrendered soul to the Lord, and then it is because of the Lord's mercy that I am able to speak. In fact, Dhruva Maharaj, as a boy when he was having darshan, he says, I was not even able to speak, I didn't know what to do, and then you told me what to do or what to speak, and so I am able to glorify you. So even if the Lord has to be glorified, the Lord gives us the potency so that we can glorify. So it's like by way of through the agency of Saraswati Mata, where she gives the intelligence and so on and so forth. So in this way, aligning everything to the Lord is very important. That helps us to have the right perspective and the right kind of alignment, which will please the Lord, and then it also clears up the space for the mercy to flow down, because we know that we are depending on the Lord and we are aligning everything to the Lord. So the Lord also is happy, and then his mercy then begins to flow thereby. It equips us to do more. And then the more we do, the more we are able to understand the glory of the Lord. So it's not the ability, because he says, I am the ability in man. So any small ability that we have, it is the Lord. So these are wonderful tattvas that we went through in these 3 shlokas. These are not new tattvas, they are the same tattvas which are there. But then but the personalities who are speaking, and how every aspect of the verses of Bhagavatam, no, every verse talks about either Samandha, Videya, Prayojana, about the Lord, about how it is aligned, about how the devotees perceive the Lord, how they differentiate between material and spiritual, how they don't differentiate between material and spiritual after a certain time. So these are some of the wonderful things that came up. So I think I'll stop here. And if there are any comments or questions anybody has, kindly go ahead. Otherwise, thank you so much. It was wonderful talking about these qualities. Hare Krishna. So devotees can share your
Hare
comments.
Krishna, Prabhuji. Thank you so much, Prabhuji, for the wonderful class. Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna,
No
Mataji.
one has raised hands, Prabhuji. So I have a question, Prabhuji. Not question, Prabhuji, for understanding.
Yes.
Can I, Prabhuji? Hare Krishna.
Yeah, please go
I'm
ahead.
not able to understand this. Prabhuji, Arjuna fought the war of Kurukshetra when Lord was personally present before him. And he was also a great devotee of the Lord. Likewise, the Dhruva Maharaj is also a devotee of the Lord. And how can one understand, Prabhuji? There, Krishna says that they all, those who are dying in the opposite side, have already they have been killed by my, so this is what the Lord declares.
Yeah.
So you are Nimitta Matra, he says, the Lord says. So
Yeah.
here, how can one understand, Prabhuji, like when Dhruva is fighting the war with Yakshas, where it goes beyond the limit and something like that. So both are warriors only, kshatriyas only. So how
Yes.
can I'm not able to understand that, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Yeah. You're
Thank
not able
you.
to understand what the aspect of.
Yeah, where it is going, where it is like here, Swayambhuva Manu is coming and consoling that you are doing you're killing so many people
No,
unnecessarily, something like that. So
no, and
there,
then they are saying that you didn't kill.
yes, Prabhuji, in Kurukshetra war, in the Bhagavad Gita, we get to learn that. So there, you don't worry, you do not worry. They have already been killed by me. So you are just a nimitta matra, the Lord says. So I'm not able to understand, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Yeah, Mataji, so when the Lord is saying that they've already been killed by me, or I've decided, which means that the Lord is saying that you're all meant to die. There are no survivors except you 5 Pandavas. So that's the verdict of the Lord. So he says that they all are anyway going, because as per their karma and other things, the Lord knew, he's omniscient. He knows that they are all gone. And then this is what is going to bring about an end for them. And that end is, he's referring to the body when he says it's going to end for them. Now, and it happened like that. So he says, now you go ahead and then take the glory by shooting the arrows, because you will kill the body, and then you get the glory also. So he is encouraging him, because the condition in which Arjuna was, he needed some encouragement. He wanted some prayojana which will make him understand that, oh, okay, the Lord desires it, and then it is anyway desired. If you don't do, somebody else will do. So you better do it, or I want you to do. That kind of a conversation the Lord is having. And then he is referring to the body when he's saying that they are all killed already by me. Because in that sense, then anyway, everybody is killed by me. So, it's a correct statement when you apply it anywhere. You see a newborn that has come into the world, you'll say that anyway, this newborn is going to be killed in the future, which is killed, or okay, not killed, will die in the future. So we know that, anyway, anybody who's born will have to die. But nobody says that because of basic courtesies and all that, and not affecting the emotions of people. So we don't refer to all those things. So which is the right thing again. But then we all know that, every one of us, all of us, we know, all of us here will not be existing eternally, continuously. Maybe some of us will exist a few years more than the others, and so on and so forth. But otherwise, eventually, everybody is going to go. So which means that the body is going to go. But then we as souls, we are eternal. That is what Krishna has said. So now when we talk about here in this fight with Dhruva Maharaj had, the bodies were killed, but then he's trying to console him by saying that bodies were killed, but then you have not killed them. So he's talking in the soul level. So he's saying that as souls, they're all eternally existing, so nobody is killing, is one thing. And then another way is like it is ordained by the Lord. So you were just an instrument, you killed, and then you had to do that. So, but now you stop, you don't have to do that anymore. So this is all different ways of looking at an incident and then trying to get some learnings out of it so that the wrong is corrected. And still they are glorified because they are devotees. See, Kuvera, he knew that he is a devotee. So he gave him that respect and that position. He also knew that he had done something which was not correct. And then he praises him still that you realize and then you stop the war. So there is no, what do you call, casual lip service kind of a thing, or just like that saying, or there's no loose talk or anything. Each one of those words are correct, and then it is realized, and then it is aligning to the tattva. So at one time he uses the bodily notation, one time he makes it, he uses the aspect of oneness, and then says that anyway we are all one. So I mean, you should not have killed, actually we are all one. He's trying to say that in an indirect way. But then it has happened, but then it's not your fault again. So because it's the will of the Lord. So like that, he's having a conversation. But he's saying that you're a devotee of the Lord, and you've got this benediction. So he realizes who's this. So api chetsa duracharo kind of a situation where he still respects, because say what sort of a devotee you are, why did you kill? I mean, you don't get into that judgmental and then fault finding kind of a thing. He says that you are still a devotee. He always gave him that respect. And that aligns with that api chetsa duracharo verse where Krishna says that even if somebody is doing something a little, my devotee who's doing a little, some activity which is not in line, then you should still consider him a devotee. It doesn't mean that we should praise that activity he has done. That might still be a little not on the right path, but then you should still consider him a devotee. And that is what Kuvera is doing here, right? So he is still considering him a devotee, and then he's saying that you are worthy of all benedictions. He's saying, even though you kill, he put that aside. And he says, you're worthy of all benedictions from us, so you can ask whatever you want. But he knew that he, being a devotee, will not ask for any other benediction, but only devotional service. I hope it clarifies. I don't know.
Yes, Prabhuji. Thank you so much, Prabhuji. Practically, when we work in the kitchen and all, being housewives, grihasthas, when we need to keep the kitchen clean, and we kill so many ants and everything, Prabhuji. So I just had this thought like, how are we unnecessarily killing all of them? Or practically, it is each one is soul. So we have to respect that also. So that time I always think, Prabhuji, how to do that. So
I mean, it's good to think, but it is also not good to overthink. That's what our Vaishnavism is all about. Okay, you can think, but then overthinking also will not, it will paralyze us. It will lead us to inaction, like this example, what you said. So sometimes, but that doesn't mean that, okay, we become so unmindful, we go and kill all the ants or whatever. We're not saying that. But yeah,
thank you.
we'll have to depend on the Lord to give us the right intelligence to view it in the right way. So
Yes, Prabhuji. Thank you so much, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna. Overthinking is my problem. Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna. Got it.
no, it is necessary to overthink, but we'll just have to ask for the Lord to guide us where I need to overthink and where I shouldn't. That's what
Yes,
I'm
helpful. Thank you so much, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
overthinking by itself is not a bad thing. Maybe some cases it is needed, some instances. Okay.
Thank you, Prabhuji. There are no more questions, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Yeah.
Thank
So
you so
we
much.
can conclude
Really
today. There is a hand raised by one Mata.
Hare Krishna,
now,
Prabhuji. I don't know if this is proper to ask. I don't understand the very basic idea of Sambandha, Abhidya and Prajana, Prabhuji. Is it a big concept to discuss now?
I can give you a brief on that. See, these are words that are used which will denote a bigger concept. That is all. So when I say Sambandha Jnana, see, these are all, everything is knowledge. Then Sambandha Jnana is Sambandha Jnana, like then you know who your son or who your family is. So this is all like Jnana with respect to Sambandha, or knowledge with respect to Sambandha. The same way, we should have the right Sambandha Jnana, which means that we should know who we are with respect to the Lord in the correct way. Thinking I am equal to Lord is not correct Sambandha Jnana. There is Sambandha. You are thinking you are equal to the Lord, but it is not correct. It is an incorrect way. So it is not Sambandha Jnana. So Sambandha is the correct way is that he is the top, he is there above and I am below, master, servant, and then the service, all of that. So that is what is Sambandha Jnana. And then, so there are many shlokas that establishes that. Then there is Abhidaya, which is, it tells us what to do, how to do devotion, what to do, what not to do, and what to do together. It tells us how we should interact with the Lord. So that is Abhidaya. And Prayojana is when you have the right Sambandha, correct understanding of who the Lord is. And then if you do the right things, then you get the right Prayojana, which is Mukti, all those shlokas which talk about the benefits. That is the benefit, you can say. Prayojana is the benefit. So there is relationship, means identity, means there is an establishment of identities of people, which is Sambandha Jnana. And then the activities that happen between those identities, which is Abhidaya, and then Prayojana is the result that happens. Like if I have to tell you in a very materialistic way, you know there is a policeman, and you know you have a problem. So you have a problem which can be solved by a policeman. So you have to identify the policeman. You should know who the policeman is. That is Sambandha Jnana. I mean, you know, oh, okay, I go to him, he'll help me. You go there and then you put your problem, or there is a process in which you have to fill out a form, you have to do something. So you do that and then give it to him. Then the result will come automatically. But now if the Sambandha is not there, you think anybody is a policeman, or you go to a constable instead of going to the policeman, or you go to a security guard who is not even connected to the police, but then you see him in a very similar dress and all that, so you go to him. It may not be complete. It may not solve your problem completely. You get what I'm saying. So the Sambandha becomes important, and that's an important aspect in our spiritual understanding. So who is the Lord and who am I and what is my relationship? That is Sambandha. Abhidaya is what I do after that, based on what he is saying I have to do. I cannot go by saying, no, now I am telling you, you do this for me. No, he will tell you what to do because he is the authority there. So then that is like the Abhidaya. So we do those actions. And then Prayojana is the result that you get. I hope it clarifies.
Yes, present is the need. What to do?
You can actually see these Sambandha, Abhidaya and Prayojana, and if you in desire tree also, you can just type those words and then try to get a more complete understanding. So I just told you in a very brief way.
Yes, Prabhuji. In Mangalacharan also this Sambandha Adi Pranam, and so I was confused. Abhidaya word, I don't know the meaning, so I couldn't get it.
Even in Vrindavan, we have the three deities, no? Sambandha deity, Abhidaya deity, and Prayojana deity. Madana Mohan deities are the Sambandha deities. Govinda ji, Radha Govinda ji is the Prayojana deities. And Radha Gopinath ji, they are the no, okay. Govinda ji is Abhidaya deity, and then Prayojana is Radha Gopinath.
Yes. Thank you, Prabhuji. Thank you. Dandavat
Hare
pranam.
Krishna.
Okay, so
Hare Krishna. Prabhuji, shall we end with the
we
prayer?
can conclude today's session. Thank you
Yes.
all so much. Thank you for hearing
Thank you, Prabhuji.
patiently, because I mean I was also not very fine with my voice and all that, but patiently listen. Thank you so much. So please forgive if there were any offenses or anything wrong that I spoke. Thank you. And we can conclude with Vaishnava pranams. Vancha kalpa kripa sindhubheva cha patitanam
Prabhupada ki jai.
Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Gurudev ki
jai.
jai, Nitai Gaur Siddhanath Paramanande, Hari Hari.
Nitai Gaur Premanande Hari Hari. All glory to the assembled deities. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Yeah, Hare Krishna to all of you. Thank you so much.
Thank you,
Hare
Prabhuji.
Krishna.
Thank
Hare
you,
Krishna.
Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Shall I end the session?